All right, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jesse, and I'm with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. I think we've got all old pros today on the broadcast, live and on YouTube, but if you are joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And May is our biodiversity epic month. Joe and I are just foregoing sleep the entire month. We are doing a slew of programs all month long. We're doing our epic Global Biodiversity Festival the third weekend of the month with 150 programs in 3 days, 72 straight hours of broadcasting. And of course, as our teachers know today, we are doing the Backyard Bio Global Nature Campaign all month long. We are encouraging you guys as families, as classrooms, however you want to do it, to get outdoors and explore local wildlife, snapping pictures and sharing whatever you find of the world on social media, iNaturalist, and with one another through direct classroom connections. Now, as the spearheader of the Backyard Bio campaign, I have been winging it out in the field, taking pictures of the things locally close to me. But today we're going to get a little bit of expert guidance and help from the team at the Royal BC Museum. So they are outdoors there, and we are joined by two members of the curatorial staff and the amazing Liz Crocker, who has coordinated all our programs with them over the last year. So I'm so excited to turn it over to Liz and then learn a little bit more about some of the cool wildlife in BC and how you guys can be encouraged and inspired to become better observers of all the wildlife near you. So without further ado, here is Liz and the team. Thank you so much for joining us, Liz, and take us away.
Hi, Jesse. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name is Liz Crocker. I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. And this is actually also the RBCM Outside program. And we're just so excited to be with our friends at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants today. So it's kind of for both of our audiences. So big welcome to everybody. I do this program every second Thursday at noon. And so we hope you can join us on some future programs. The next one we have is May 20th, and it's going to be about the Japanese tea house that used to be at a park in Victoria called Gorge Park now. So that's going to be more of a history walk, virtual. So hopefully you can join us. Information is on the Royal BC Museum website. But today, for this program, I am here at Beacon Hill Park in Victoria. So if you live here, if you've been here before, this is kind of like our Stanley Park or Central Park. It's a very heavily managed urban park, but it is beautiful. We're on the southern tip of Vancouver Island, and we are in the territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, also known as the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nation, and First Nations. I am always very grateful and glad to be able to acknowledge that I get to live and work and play on this beautiful territory. Oops, there we go. All right. So the other thing I wanted to say is this program is going to be recorded, and we will, like our other programs, and it will be posted to YouTube, so you can always check it out later if you don't get to see this whole thing or you want to share it with somebody. Also, yes, the Pocket Gallery I wanted to mention. This is connected to the theme of today's theme, which is bio blitz and biodiversity. At the Royal BC Museum, if you are in Victoria, we are open, and we have what's called our Pocket Gallery, and it's near the lobby, and it's free. Anybody can go in. It's a small rotating space, and we have different exhibits in there. And right now, there's an exhibition called Collaborating for Conservation, and it's all about sort of what we're going to talk about today, which is citizen science, community scientists, and how just all of us can contribute to our knowledge of biodiversity. But this exhibit is particular in connection with Royal BC Museum's connection to BC Parks. It's a really great little exhibit. So if you live around BC or around Victoria, please come down and check it out. Yes, so I'm here. I'm on the learning team, but I'm here with a couple of intrepid scientists in this park. There's Joel waving in the background. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna go here, and then Gavin, if you can go a little bit closer to Joel. There we go. There's Gavin. We unfortunately are having a little bit of camera difficulties, so you're gonna have to bear with us. I'm gonna have them in my back view today. Dr. Gavin Hanke, jump in the camera there, Gavin, is the curator. There he is, curator of vertebrate zoology at the museum. So vertebrates, those animals with backbones like us, that is in Gavin's wheelhouse. And over there in the corner with his fabulous net and his pooter tube he's going to show us, that is Dr. Joel Gibson, and he's the curator of entomology at the museum. So insects, and I think I know we have spiders in our collection as well. And so those are animals without backbone. So we got the whole gamut here. And so what I thought would be fun to do today is like just treat this park like a backyard for Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants Backyard Bio Blitz. And we're going to follow along and watch these two scientists as they demonstrate observing in nature, because anybody can do that. And especially for if there's any younger kids on or classrooms in the call today, learning how to be observing things in nature is just one of the critical skills of being a scientist. And you might find that you really enjoy it and think, oh my gosh, I want a career in science because this is amazing. Anyway, so we're going to get a chance to follow them along, and they're also going to share with us, hopefully, if they find some things, how they share what they find on social media or iNaturalist. Okay, so without flipping the camera around, we're going to start with Joel, I think. We're going to start with Joel. So I'm going to pop my mask back on, and you, Joel, you can go ahead and start.
Hello.
Hi, Joel.
I'm glad you could join us today. Like Liz was saying, this is a great backyard. I mean, this is the city's backyard. And it's a great chance for us to do the stuff we do. And for me, that means looking at insects, finding out what insects are where. And also a neat thing that we can do today that is really applicable to anyone's backyard is what are insects doing where they're doing? Because this is the sort of thing that we're learning a lot about. And if we want to look at how things are changing in the future with biodiversity, with climate change or development, we have to know what things are doing to know how they're going to be affected by changes. So it's a great chance for us to do that today. And if you follow me, here it is, a little 5-minute version of here is science that you can do in your backyard, just like this backyard.
All right.
Come with me.
Thanks, Joel. Okay.
So, like I'm saying, like insects, there's lots of them out here. And I could sit out here all day and probably collect a couple hundred different species of insects, which are great. And that's a great record of things we know that live in the city today on May 6th in this part of the world. Great, interesting information. And I usually do that, a lot of that across the province, and a lot of people we work with do that. But another thing we can do is, what are they doing? So here you go. We'll find an example of, here's some flowers. Now, this is the other part about science, is science doesn't mean knowing everything. Science means knowing next to nothing. Like, for example, I don't know what plants these are, but I know there's people out there that do know what plants there are. There's probably gardeners there that are yelling into the camera right now, I know what those are. Those are whatever they are. Point out here. But to me, they're the pretty little purple flowers. Now, what I want to know is what insects are on these pretty little purple flowers today. Because when I go in the collection, we probably don't have a record of that. We might have a record of some flies and spiders, but we didn't know they lived on these flowers. And if these flowers only bloom for about a week in this park, then that means we probably only find those insects for a week in this park. And then you have, data and information going together. And this is what you can do in your yard. Wildflowers come up. What's on those wildflowers for that week? You write it down in your notebook, and there you go. You have recorded really valuable information. And I'll tell you right now, most of that is information people have not recorded before. We know a lot about the plants. We know a lot about the insects. We don't know how they work with each other in almost every part of the world. So that is really valuable. So what I'm going to do today is start with what I don't know, which is I don't know what flower this is because I just don't know. I'm not good with flowers.
Right.
So I'll take a picture of it.
I think your colleague, Gavin, I've heard him say, for science, you don't have to be smart, you just have to be curious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about knowing what you don't know and knowing how to find it out. And for me, I could bring out the botanist from the museum, Ken Marr, who's a brilliant botanist, and he could tell me what they are. I could ask someone coming by in the park, so a friendly person who knows more about flowers than me. Or I'm going to use this app, iNaturalist, where it allows me to take a picture of an organism, which for me is the flower. And flowers are particularly good for this app because it's really, a lot of people are active on it to identify flowers. So there you go. I post my picture. It's on there. I will use that photo.
Try and hold it up. See, we can. Yep. I don't know if we're going to be able to see that, but.
It looks like a phone.
Yeah.
So, and then there you go. And the nice thing is with a lot of the apps that you use, it'll automatically put the location and the date. So this says it's in this park on May 6th. That's great. Some of them, if they're very good, will give you a suggestion of the name, which you can agree or not agree. This one says it's some kind of bluebell, which I agree with. It's probably some kind of bluebell. But if I leave it on here, somebody who knows the city will add to it. So then I could add to my notebook, okay, here's all the things I saw on bluebells today. and I will collect them with my net. I'll collect them with my pooter. There's a bumblebee flying there.
Anna's hummingbirds have been in them.
Oh, wait.
Oh, he's got the net out, ladies and gentlemen.
He's going. The hunt begins.
So there's bumblebees in the bluebells. That's not a poem. That's just something that happened.
But it could be. It so could be a poem.
So here you go.
Yep.
And just so that you guys can see this a little bit better, I'll put it in a clear little tube so that you can look at it without it flying around in my net. But there you go.
Oh, it's huge.
Oh no, this is a big queen.
Well, she's not happy about being in there.
Well, she'll just be in here briefly. That's the nice thing about this, is that I can quickly take a picture.
Wow. She's really big.
So there you go. And these are particularly good for, pardon me, for apps, because I can take a good photo, find out what it is.
Oh dear.
Pollen.
It's the pollen. Pardon me.
It's not COVID, it's
No.
the pollen.
It's the pollen. So there you go. But the nice thing with this is I'll be able to add to that observation on bluebells, which is a huge piece of information to add to it.
And sorry, did you say what kind of bee that was?
Bumble? No, I'm not sure which bumble.
Okay.
I would guess, although I could be wrong, my guess right now is it's Vosnezensky, because that's the one that tends to have very black abdomen and very black wings.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Bosnia.
Bombas Vosnezensky?
Okay.
I can't even say that word. And one other
It's
thing
a
I did,
bumblebee.
like a cooking show, I caught earlier
Ah,
this other one. You can get a close-up shot on that as well. Oh, wait.
there we go.
Which you're like, oh, yeah, that's great, Joel. Another bumblebee. No, 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 no. This is a fly that is a mimic of a bumblebee. Wait.
Oh, wow. I don't know how well everyone can see that out there, but
There
it
you go.
is
I'd say it over
definitely,
here.
yeah, it's very hairy.
So, and that's the whole point of what we're doing here, is in your backyard, record data that means something to you. Now, you may not use it. It may just end up, like people who keep track of the weather every day, and 30 years later, they might use it, they might not. But the data is there, and all you have to do is make sure you record it, put the date on it, the location helps, and your name. So if anybody looks it up later, they can look you up and say, wait. Are you the one that saw the bumblebee and the bluebells? And you can say, yes, I'm the one that saw the bumblebee and the bluebells.
And what I'm understanding with all these citizen science tools that we have now is just that scientists' understanding of how much biodiversity and the different range of species has just in grown exponentially in the last few years, while anybody, citizen scientists, can get involved and contribute. Oh, for goodness sake. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my camera. Yeah, so that the role of just all of us contributing to science through these tools like our naturalists are really helping science.
Yes.
Well,
That's amazing.
Your earliest scientists were basically citizens collecting fossils or plants, insects. They'd go on a trip around the world and they'd collect as they went. Some of the earliest collections were done like that. So citizen science, it's all come full circle.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
And instead of, we don't have to shoot them, we can just take pictures of them.
Yeah.
Yep. Excellent. Yeah, because actually the early scientists at the museum used to come to Beacon Hill Park and shoot birds out of the trees. So
Well, one last thing. I gotta
yes,
get one more in.
yes.
Beacon Hill Park, there's actually an endangered species, the island marble butterfly.
Oh,
The original collection was right here in this park.
really?
Now it's not found in a lot of places. It's really limited to a couple of islands. But we have in the collection the original specimens that were collected in the 1880s by people on a picnic in the park, collected this butterfly. And then since then, it's become very rare and possibly extinct.
Right. There was a lot of butterfly collecting for hats and things back in the day, right?
Well, there was that, and there's people doing it for art, but then a lot of people did preserve them as data. Because even back then, people were like, no, this is data. Someone's going to want to know about this later. So they put a little data tag on it, and we use it 140 years later.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Joel. Thank you. Okay, but stand by. We might need you
I will
again.
stay by.
Okay. Dr. Gavin Hanke, what have you got for us? Let's get you on camera first. There we go.
Well, I have to admit, like Joel, I did the cooking thing. I came here yesterday to make sure I had lots of photos in my phone. As a vertebrate biologist, it's easy to find things here. Actually, can I take my mask off?
Yes,
I know
because
it's-
mine's on. We're
oh,
outside,
lovely,
and
I'm
Liz
outside.
has hers on. So there we go.
There you go. That's my real face, not my masky face. the nice thing about vertebrates and iNaturalist is even with a cell phone, they're big enough in most cases to get a good photo to identify what is present. That is the one odd thing about iNaturalist. Really tiny things like zooplankton. Technically, you could still photograph it, but you'd need a microscope first, and then you have to manually say where you found it. With a phone, it will actually give you a time, a date, and a location where you took a picture of, say, a mallard duck, a Canada goose. We found an American widgeon here yesterday. I found 4 species of turtle already. All of them are pets that people have dumped here. While we were looking at the little purple flowers, just to use the technical term we're going to stick with, there was an Anna's hummingbird going through the flowers as well. So there was a vertebrate using the exact same flowers as the bee and the fly. So I'm kind of lucky. I can sneak up on things and take pictures with my phone. Squirrels generally will come close enough. So I've already got a bank of things to actually add on to iNaturalist.
But can we test you and see if you can find something live right now?
Well, there's a duck right there.
Okay, well, let's go try this duck.
Okay,
We're gonna watch Gavin observe a duck, and
these are ducks that are sitting quietly, so it'll be easy to find them.
Okay,
now they're looking nervous.
Yep, they are looking a bit nervous.
Failing that, the Canada geese are going to be sitting there. So generally, I can get pretty close. I don't know if you can see that on my phone. Zoom in with the camera. So there's 2 resting ducks. And I always try to get one shot in the bank at a decent distance, because I know what that is. I know a mallard duck. It's not a tough thing to identify. And then I'll slowly move closer and closer to get a better and better shot. And so this is a female. Let's just focus on the female. And of course, these birds are really tame, so. Yeah, the male's already left. And so there we are. That's pretty close for if you can see that.
All right. Oh, that's pretty good.
So I got pretty close to her. And so that's an easy one to add. I was being silly earlier and I got a picture of a gull that's going to be a little more, rotate better and be bigger. It's a little trickier to identify. I'm certainly no expert on gulls.
Gulls are tricky.
They are tricky.
And so you've got the app right on your phone.
The app is on my phone. It can be on a computer. You can take photographs from a standard camera, a digital camera, or even an old film camera, scan the pictures, and manually add the date, the time, the location.
Okay.
I got a lizard yesterday as well, over just a couple of meters east of here.
Now, Gavin, this might be a good time to mention the RBCM on the Royal BC Museum on iNaturalist.
Yes.
I think actually Jenny, my colleague Jenny, could share a link for that. We have a project name. Is that what it is?
It's basically it's an iNaturalist project where we link observations to the museum, so that we get to see them and we can help identify things. So all you have to do in the notes section of an iNaturalist entry, add @RBCM, and I do that for all my records now. So unfortunately, it's just being flooded with lizard pictures, but that's just me.
And then it comes to the museum. And then the experts at the museum can help ID. And
yeah, when I find a plant I don't know, because I'm certainly not the botanist, I will send in the picture, and there's a flood of identifications. The nice thing about iNaturalist is it's a very friendly community, and if you get something, either you leave it vague, because like for that gull, for example, I don't know what species that is. Someone else will, and they're very polite about updating your identifications. People will put comments in back and forth, like, where did you see it? It's a really nice community of scientists and like-minded individuals.
It's a polite social media community.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't know where our timing is at, Jesse, but we could stop for some questions, or we could see what Joel's doing. What would you like to do?
We were at the 20-minute mark. This has been amazing. Oh. You guys are the most wry, hilarious, fantastic scientists of all time. So thank you so much for this.
I picked them especially.
You did it. You did a great job. This has been a real treat. So we've been sharing all these links as you guys have been telling us all sorts of cool things about iNaturalist, about the Royal BC Museum and more. What I'd love to do is, bring everyone back, take some questions. Catching a bee live on camera. By the way, of the two of you, catching the bumblebee did beat sneaking up on the duck. I've got to say, in the challenge of vertebrates versus vertebrates, so far Joel's got the edge. But we'll see how the broadcast goes. I'm not sure. It could go any way.
It's a shame I couldn't have been noosing lizards. That would have been.
Yes, that will win you. Yeah, that'll win you next time. We'll make sure that happens. Yeah. So guys, we're going to dive in with questions. We've got 5 live groups from across the continent, a bunch of people on YouTube as well. So I'm going to start with Miss Shelton's class. Miss Shelton's class is joining us today in Benicia, California. We've got groups all down the West Coast. So come on in California and share with us.
Hi, it's good to see everybody. We're enjoying the beautiful weather you guys are having as well. There was a question about the mimicking fly, and a student wanted to know how many insects do you see usually in the park that mimic other insects?
That's a great question, because with insects, there's so many species that it almost gets to the point, if anything is kind of dangerous, there's like 4 or 5 species that look like it, because it's just so good to look like something dangerous. And when I say bumblebees, I don't mean dangerous to us. I mean, bumblebees are dangerous to birds. They don't want to eat them because they'll get stung in the mouth, and they don't like that. So if you're a fly that looks like a bumblebee, you're not going to get eaten by a bird. So I would say at least, if you find every version of bumblebee, there's probably 4 or 5 species that look like it. A lot of them are flies. There's a couple of beetles that actually really look like them. And there's even some other wasps and bees that don't have stingers that look like ones that do. So mimicry is really common. Oh, one last thing. I know there's other questions, but I've even seen cool cases where flies that don't have big antennae like bees will hold their legs next to their head to look like antenna.
That's so cool.
And I had a friend that did research on this that took pictures. And once again, using pictures they took in the wild, showing this behavior. And she had some fancy name for it, like leg antenna mimicking behavior. But it was really just making yourself a better cosplay.
That's lamb.
That actually is the scientific term. By the way, mimicry, we're getting the chance to talk about mimicry with vertebrates as well. A lot of non-poisonous snakes will mimic poisonous snakes. This is a common thing in the animal kingdom. I'm in Ontario, Southern Ontario, and for a lot of our groups here, you'll notice sort of spiders that mimic ants. You'll see this in your house sometimes. You'll notice more flies that look like bees. Like, it's a very common thing in the natural animal kingdom, which is very cool. Did you want to dive in?
I would argue that they're not poisonous snakes. They're venomous.
Venomous snakes. You're right. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Careful,
I'm fired.
Jesse, can't say the wrong term in front of the
No, I can't. I'm sorry.
Totally edible.
By the way, before we go to Mr. Shattuck's class next, can I just agree? I think everyone's going to agree with me. This is like the most beautiful park in a city on the planet. Like, this is a stunning place. So thank you for coming here. Lucky you guys.
If I could pan my camera around, I'd show you.
Yeah. Well, we saw when we snuck up on the ducks, we got to see that beautiful pond and all the plants. Oh, anyway, Mr. Shattuck's class is joining us in Chalk River, Ontario. Come on in, Mr. Shattuck, and take us away.
Hi there. I'm hoping that Olivia will be able to unmute and ask her question.
Oh, Mr. Shattuck, if she was asking, we can't hear it through the cameras. Only you can hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. She's asking, of all the insects that you've caught out there, what would be the favorite one that you've managed to catch?
I gotta say, flies are always my favorite because there's so much variety. It's funny, if you ask everyone to sit down and draw a fly, they draw something like a house fly, and most people do a pretty good job drawing a house fly. But in Canada, there's probably 30 to 40,000 species. No, maybe 10. Okay, we'll say 10,000 species of flies across Canada. So, even in Chalk River, which I've been, it's a great place, there's probably at least a couple thousand species of flies. And if you looked at them, they don't all look like house flies. Some of them are long and skinny. Some of them mimic something else. And plus you'll find flies that do everything. Some are predators. Some recycle, materials in the dirt. They eat dirt. Some are in, dung and carcasses and gross things like that. But a lot of them are pollinating. So, yeah, I'm always going to say flies when you ask me that question because flies are the best.
I want to add a nerdy thing to the flies thing, which Joel and I can agree on here. So all flies have the second pair of wings. There's the main pair of wings. They have the second pair of wings, halteres. I'm going to bring this word up on the screen. Probably pronouncing it wrong. Like I'm pronouncing everything wrong. Did I? Good. Okay, so it's like a little pair of like magic air sensors, and they flop like this. Most flies are too small for you to see this, but a lot of our Ontario groups will have something called a crane fly, which are the big, huge ones. Some people call them big mosquitoes. They're not. They're crane flies. You can see their whole tears. Like, see one of these dead flies, and you'll see these little things, not necessarily moving, but they're the coolest thing. So all our kids should do this when you're done the broadcast. Go find a crane fly. Is the moral of the story.
You know what the great thing about halteres were?
Please.
They used halteres to figure out how to make drones.
That's
They
so
needed extra little things that balance out the flapping.
I love it. See, small world. All right. Professional detachments totally aside, we're not going to get through near the questions because I'm just not going to stop. Guys. Sorry. Miss Holden's class joining us in Spruce Grove, Alberta. Come on in, guys.
Hi there. This has been really interesting. Some of my kids are a little concerned they don't have a lot of wildlife in their backyard. So Callie is wondering, how can you lure insects into your backyard?
How can you lure insects into your backyard? One way, change how you're looking, because there's more than you think. You're right, some backyards look kind of devoid, and if you want to find something, you're going to have to do work like digging up soil and sifting through leaf piles and things like that. But if you do want to have more plants always helps. More plants that are sort of native to the area are good. So wildflowers that are from that part of Alberta are more likely to attract insects from that part of Alberta. Other good things you can do are things like leaf piles, grass clippings. That's all material. Like, just think about it. Horses want a bunch of hay to lay in or eat. Hay or straw, I'm not sure. I'm not a very good horse farmer. But they need material. Insects are the same thing. Having grass clippings, having leaf in the yard, that's all material for them to live in, build nests, eat. So leave more material. If it looks like a parking lot, not going to be a lot of things growing in it.
Great point. And then
So that's why
Gavin,
my messy yard, I've got a lot of insects because a lot of leaf litter.
we've actually had a lot of pollinators. Go ahead, Gavin. Sorry. Go ahead.
Any chemicals in our garden? We've got lots of layers. So there's understory, there's midstory, there's higher bushes and fruit trees, nut trees. And we leave the debris in the winter so that there's shelter for the insects. But it also works for the birds because then they've got something to forage in all winter. So it's a win-win for everything if you've got a really complicated garden and not just a monoculture of grass.
One of the things a lot of our kids are really keen on nowadays is pollinators, making sure that bees survive and other things. And one of the big things all pollinator researchers say is leave a bit of your garden left, with the leaves or leave it to not mow it from the dandelion. Like, that is food, that is habitat for those species. And it's really, really important. Gavin, too, one of the things that a lot of our families, of course, do is have bird feeders. That's a way to, if you want to attract larger creatures, that's a way to do it. And is there anything you can speak to for attracting other vertebrates or more birds or anything else?
Well, again, complexity is the way to do it. If you've got a lot of different levels in your trees, your bushes, your shrubs, your flowers, then you'll get different birds. So some will forage on the ground. Others are like warblers might be flitting through trees. And then you might, if you're really lucky, get a couple of merlins or a Cooper's hawk or something like that attacking the birds. My garden has, I know it's an invasive species, but a common wall lizard infestation. We've got gray squirrels. We've got rabbits that are introduced. We've got black or mule deer. The garden's actually full. We almost never get exotic species of birds in our garden. It's all native species like towhees, Buicks, wrens. We've got our local chickadee. So, and it's just because the garden is complicated, and we don't mind sharing a little bit of our produce because we grow a lot of food plants, not grass. So we do share a little bit with the backyard animals.
Fantastic. What a cool backyard. After I finish coming to that park when I come to Victoria, I'll come and check that out. That sounds like a lot of fun. Let's head also to Spruce Grove. We got 2 Spruce Grove classes today. Miss Johnson's class, if you guys want to unmute your mic, and then we'll come to Miss Wolter in just a minute. But Miss Johnson, come on in, guys. There you go.
How big can a queen bumblebee get?
Well, can you say that again?
Yeah, sorry, it's how big can a queen bumblebee get? I think we were all shocked at how big that one was in the tube. So do they get bigger? Is this like Attack of the 90-foot ant sort of thing, or?
Oh, that's a great question about insects, because people will often say, ooh, I found a baby bee. No, if it's got wings, it's an adult. It's just a small species. So the one difference is with bumblebees, if you find a really, really big one that's the same color, that's probably a queen. All the rest of them are going to be workers. So, but if you find one that's a lot smaller, it's probably a different species. So there are baby bees don't look like bees. They look like little maggots, and they have heads with little chewing mouth parts on them. So if it's got wings, it's not a baby. But there's hundreds of species of bees, and some are super tiny little bees. You wouldn't even know it was a bee until you looked under the microscope.
Okay, I've got two follow-ups again. I'm sorry, I have to. It's just too exciting. One is for bees. Now, this isn't true of bumblebees, but it is true of honeybees. Really, when you're done this broadcast, everybody go home and look up the waggle dance. It is the most amazing thing in all of nature. I just love it. You think humans are smart? Your bees have got us like just the coolest thing. Coolest example of an animal intelligence, I think, in the entire world. And in terms of size of insects, the largest ant in the world, an entire colony of the smallest ant in the world, could fit inside the head of one of the biggest ants in the world. Super, super cool stuff. Love sharing these sorts of things. This is not true for birds. Actually, it might be, I don't know, a whole flock of birds inside the head of something big? I don't think so, no. Miss Boulder's class joining us in Thunder Bay. Welcome in Thunder Bay. Guys, just unmute that microphone and you're good to go.
Hello.
Hi.
Teaching virtually, and my students have logged off because it is 3:20 already, but one of their questions is they'd like to know if there are any bee hotels that are put up in that area to encourage the bees to locate where you are.
In the park, they don't usually. It's not a bad thing. Bee hotels can be a really good thing. The one thing is to keep an eye on them and make sure that they don't kind of rot and fall apart, because then they're really not that helpful anymore. But 1 year at a time, they're really good. And like Gavin said, they're kind of doing the same thing as your brush pile is. You're just providing a bunch of spaces that a bee can use. So it's not a bad thing that they're there. The best thing if you're going to have a bee hotel is you may as well put the work into looking what's there. So if you put one in your yard, go out, look at them. If you're really lucky, try to get a picture with your phone or with a good camera. And then you get to add to your bee hotel by having a great photograph that you can enter in a contest or you can put on your wall.
Right. But you don't think there's any in the park here?
They probably don't do it in the park because they don't need to. As long as they leave enough areas that have spaces, then they don't. But if someone were to hang one up on a bench, that's not a bad thing. They just probably don't bother.
Yeah. I love that this is a really important message. You know, a lot of our students today are coming in from major metropolitan centers where there isn't quite as much wildlife as there is in more rural areas. And so it's really exciting at home. If you're at home and you want to build a bat box or if you want to build a video call, really fantastic tools. But in natural areas where we keep those habitats and ecosystems intact, it's not as necessary because there's plenty of room and space and food for these animals to exist as they are. Guys, this has been great. We're whipping through these. We're going to go through another round of questions in a minute, but I want to start. Gavin, is there a specialty of yours? We got a chance to have you check out a mallard today. Is there a type of creature you're particularly keen on that you'd like to share with us today?
Oh, well, I'll sound like a broken record if I say common wall lizard, but I think I'm #1 in the world for identifying and tagging common wall lizards in iNaturalist. So it's kind of fun. But I'm actually watching a few other species right now. One is the western fence lizard. So last year we got 2 western fence lizards in British Columbia. They're the first 2 for Canada, and they were found on the Lower Mainland. And they probably came in as a stowaway, but I'm marking all of these odd stowaways in iNaturalist just to document animals arriving as accidents. So right now I'm raising a brown anole. It's a lovely little lizard normally from the Caribbean, but they've invaded North America, and they're showing up in the pet trade. They're showing up in garden centers, tropical plant centers. And so now whenever people phone me up and say, I've got a lizard, I found it in a plant I bought at this store. Yeah. So now we're tagging those and using iNaturalist for that as well. So it's a lizard that probably could survive here if temperature warmed up just a few degrees. Yeah. So yeah.
Gavin, my hero as a child was Steve Irwin. So I'm like fully on the herpetologist train. Like I love reptiles and amphibians, but a lot of people are afraid of them. They think they're slimy. They don't want to touch them. They're a little bit afraid, certainly of snakes and bigger lizards. Can you speak to just sort of the magic of these animals? Like what attracts you to these creatures that maybe other people at home, if they've never picked up a lizard, never seen a lizard in the wild or a snake, would encourage them to, take a little extra time to look and see what there is?
Well, the easy answer is I have all of my fingers. So I have been bitten so many times I have lost count, and I'm still intact. So they're not that dangerous. I have been bitten by one venomous snake. I have been attacked by a 12-foot python, and I am still here to tell the tale. So they're not that dangerous. Granted, I don't recommend diving in and wrestling alligators. I had a pet caiman. It used to sleep with me. It was, reptiles aren't that dangerous. And there's really almost, you're running out of battery power. We do have venomous snakes here in Canada. In BC, we've got the Pacific rattlesnake. There's the prairie rattlesnake on the prairies. And then, of course, there's the Massasauga in Ontario. But they're not that common, and you have to go out of your way to find them. I've only seen a few myself. And most other snakes, I think snakes are the one that most people get weirded out over. Yeah. All of our snakes, except with the exception of the rattlesnakes, they're not venomous. And if they do bite, it's a couple of pinholes in your hand. It's not a big deal in the big picture.
I absolutely love it.
And they are important. Yeah. Like
they are.
Our rodent snakes control rodent populations. So yeah, we want that.
Yeah, and they're beautiful. I mean, we talked about gardens being diverse and attracting all these species, but the more biodiverse an area is, and we can show this scientifically around the world, the richer it is. I think instinctually as people, if we go to a place like the park you guys are in now, we recognize that as a special place, a place where there's a lot of life, a lot of amazing living things, and it's something that's just, it stirs the spirit. It's exciting to see, outside of the scientific love of it, it's just a magical place. And I'm really glad we got a chance to talk about this today. By the way, I absolutely love that you began your story of snakes are good by, I've been bitten by so many and attacked by pythons. Thank you for that. One of my favorite stories, actually literally announced yesterday, they are doing drone photography off the California coast. We've got a California class today of all the great white sharks that are basically constantly around the swimmers and surfers there. And they want nothing to do with people. Like they absolutely couldn't care less in 99.9% of cases. And I think that that's an important message too. So very cool, guys. I know, Liz, you were mentioning you're running out of battery. So if you die in the middle, that's okay. What we can do is if classes have more questions, we're nearing the end of the broadcast anyway, they can share them with me and I'll make sure we get them to you. But is there a last overarching message you guys all want to share with us about getting out in nature and exploring for Backyard Bio and for RBCM Outside?
Oh, well, I hope that we've gotten across it's really easy, even though I'm here with these hilarious experts and I'm having trouble with my camera. You won't have to do what I'm doing with the camera. It's really just about using your eyes. Oh, for goodness sake, I'm so sorry. It's just about get outside and just pause. And we all need that right now. Just sit somewhere and just watch what goes around you. And you'll be amazed at what you can see. And if you don't feel like taking a picture or don't have a device and don't want to share it, start sketching. Both of these biologists here use sketching and illustration in their work because it forces you to sit and really look at something closely. It's a really wonderful activity too. So that's all. You guys have anything else to finish on?
Well, the other thing with iNaturalist, like I've added photographs that I took 20 years ago. So I remember where the photograph was and I have a date written in my notes. So historic photos that you took with an old camera back when it was a film that you had to send off to be developed. Those old photos can still be added to iNaturalist as historic records. So cool. It's not just today's digital technology. You can go back in time using your own photo collection.
Yeah.
All right.
Guys, this has been so much fun. I so appreciate you joining us. I want to bring up a few quick links before we wrap up. If people want to find out more about the amazing team at the Royal BC Museum, check out their website or on Twitter there on the link in the bottom of the screen. If you want to check us out at the Backyard Bio project on iNaturalist, it is at inaturalist.org/project/backyardbio. In general, iNaturalist and the Seek app for kids especially are amazing tools. You got a chance to see them in action today. Get out, explore, have fun with them. And then if you want to share your pics on social media with us, #BackyardBio, and learn more about the whole campaign at backyardbio.net. What a special opportunity, guys. Thank you so much for your time. It's so nice to meet people as passionate about wildlife as I am and get to share that with so many kids. And so for our teachers, please do email me more questions. We'd love to get them answered. And what we do at the end of every program, guys, Joel, Gavin, Liz, I'm going to bring in all our teachers. So Miss Shelton, Mr. Shattuck, Miss Holden, Miss Johnson, and Miss Wolter. Join me in saying a big farewell and thank you.